The 1960s were a time of incredible innovation, where engineers dreamt up extraordinary machines to shape the future. Many of these visions took to the rails, promising speeds and efficiencies never before seen. Yet, despite their brilliance and functionality, some groundbreaking train designs never made it past the prototype stage or saw limited, ill-fated service. They were ahead of their time, too expensive, or simply faced insurmountable obstacles. Today, we look back at 10 such remarkable trains from the 1960s that actually worked, but for various reasons were ultimately abandoned. Prepare to journey into a forgotten era of railway ambition. Number 1. New York Central M497 Black Beetle in 1966. The New York Central Railroad introduced a truly wild concept. The M497 Black Beetle, an experimental jet-powered railcar. Engineers mounted two second-hand General Electric J4719 jet engines, originally from a Convair B-36 Peacemaker bomber, atop a standard Bud Rail diesel car, RDC-3. The RDC-3 received a streamlined front cowling designed by Ruth Wetzel, giving it its distinctive Black Beetle nickname. On July 23, 1966, this audacious machine achieved an astonishing speed of 183.168 mph, 295.6 km/h, on a straight, unmodified track section between Butler, Indiana, and Stryker, Ohio, setting an American rail speed record that stood for years. The project's goal was to gather data on the stresses of high-speed travel on conventional tracks and equipment. While it proved high-speed rail was feasible on existing infrastructure, the M497 was not considered commercially viable due to operational costs, noise, and the sheer impracticality of its jet propulsion for regular passenger service. The engines were later removed and repurposed as snowblowers. Number 2. French Aérotrain. France's Aérotrain, conceived by engineer Jean Bertin in the early 1960s, aimed to revolutionize rail travel with its hovercraft-like design. This innovative vehicle floated on a cushion of air above a single inverted T-shaped concrete guideway, eliminating wheel-on-rail friction. Various prototypes were developed, some propeller-driven and others powered by turbofans or linear induction motors. The Aérotrain Yukon prototype conducted successful test runs in the late 1960s, showcasing its potential for high speeds and efficiency. The I-80HV prototype, propelled by a turbofan, achieved a staggering 260 mph, 422 km/h in 1969, and later 260.9 mile, 430 km/h in 1974, setting a world record for air-cushioned vehicles. Despite its technical successes and plans for commercial lines, particularly one between Cergy-Pontoise and La Défense in Paris, the project faced challenges securing consistent funding and political support. The oil crisis of 1973 pushed a shift towards electric propulsion, and with the rise of conventional high-speed electric trains like the TGV, the Aérotrain project was abandoned in 1977. Number 3. British Tracked Hovercraft, RTV-31. Across the Hill, English Channel, British engineers were also pursuing hovertrain technology in the 1960s. The Tracked Hovercraft project combined hovercraft lift with a linear induction motor, a LIM, for propulsion, aiming for 250 mph, 400 km/h, intercity service. This system eliminated physical contact with the guideway, promising low friction and high speeds. A dedicated company, Tracked Hovercraft Limited, was formed in 1967 with government backing. Their full-scale prototype, Research Test Vehicle 31, RTV-31, was designed to glide along a purpose-built concrete track. In February 1973, RTV-31 reached a speed of 150 mph, 167 km/h, on a 1-mile, 1.6 km test section near Erith, Cambridgeshire, even though the full 20-mile track was never completed. However, just 1 week after this successful test, the project was abruptly cancelled by the government in 1973 due to escalating costs, technical challenges, and competing rail technologies like the advanced passenger train. Number 4. Union Pacific Gas Turbine Electric Locomotives, GTLs. While not banned in the same sense as unadopted prototypes, Union Pacific Railroad operated a significant fleet of gas turbine electric locomotives, GTELs, from the 1950s into the 1960s, which were eventually retired in 1970. These big blows, as they were nicknamed for their deafening noise, used a gas turbine to drive an electric generator, powering traction motors on the axles. Union Pacific was the only railroad in the United States to extensively use them, with a fleet totaling 55 locomotives. The later, larger models delivered between 1958 and 1961 produced a hefty 8,500 horsepower, making them among the most powerful locomotives ever built. They were highly effective for pulling heavy freight trains between Council Bluffs, Iowa, and Ogden, Utah. However, their immense appetite for fuel oil, coupled with rising fuel costs in the 1970s, made them economically unsustainable compared to increasingly efficient diesel locomotives. The extreme noise and environmental concerns regarding their emissions also contributed to their eventual retirement. Number 5. United Aircraft TurboTrain. The United Aircraft Corporation, UAC. TurboTrain was a pioneering high-speed gas turbine train developed in the 1960s, aiming to bring passengers back to the rails. First hitting the rails in the late 1960s, it was unique for its aircraft-derived Pratt & Whitney Canada ST6 turboshaft engines and its innovative tilting technology. The cars shared common bogies, allowing them to naturally lean into curves, enabling higher speeds on existing winding tracks. The TurboTrain achieved a top speed of 107 mph, 274 km/h during test runs, setting a North American rail speed record. It operated commercially for Amtrak in the U.S. between Boston and New York, and for VIA Rail in Canada on the Montreal-Toronto route. Despite its advanced design and speed, the TurboTrain faced numerous operational challenges, including unreliability in cold Canadian winters, with issues like frozen brakes, high fuel costs, and the limitations imposed by having to share tracks with slower freight trains. These issues, combined with limited ridership, led to its withdrawal from service in the early 1980s. Number 6. General Motors. Aérotrain. General Motors introduced the Aérotrain in 1955-1956, a sleek, futuristic-looking train designed to revive declining passenger rail travel. Although it first appeared slightly before the 1960s, its limited commercial service and eventual scrapping occurred within the decade. The Aérotrain featured lightweight construction, with coach cars built from modified bus bodies and an airplane-style locomotive cab. It was intended to be affordable and efficient, capable of speeds up to 100 mm, 160 km/h. GM produced 2 full prototype sets, which were leased and tested by major railroads like the Pennsylvania Railroad and Union Pacific. However, the Aérotrain proved to be a commercial failure. Its lightweight design led to a notoriously rough and noisy ride, with passengers comparing it to riding in a tin can. The locomotives were also underpowered, struggling on hills and longer hauls. These comfort and performance issues, along with its fixed train set configuration that made car interchange difficult, meant it failed to attract sustained ridership. Both prototypes were ultimately retired and ended up in museums by 1966. Number 7. British Rail Advanced Passenger Train, APT. While primarily a 1970s project, the research and development for the British Rail Advanced Passenger Train, APT, began in the early 1960s. Its core innovation was active tilting technology, allowing it to lean into curves at higher speeds on Britain's winding Victorian-era tracks. The experimental APTE, unveiled in 1971, achieved a British rail speed record of 152.3 mph, 245.1 in 1975. Later, the service prototype APTP reached 162.2 km/h, 261.0 in 1979. The APT aimed for speeds of up to 155 mph and 250 km/h in service. Despite its technological advancements, the APT faced significant problems when rushed into passenger service in 1981, including frozen brakes and tilting mechanisms that sometimes failed to right themselves. Most famously, the tilting motion caused motion sickness in a third of its passengers. Competing political interests, technical hurdles, and the success of the simpler non-tilting high-speed train, HST, led to the project's cancellation by 1986. Ironically, British Rail later sold the tilting technology to Italian firm Fiat Ferroviaria, which successfully resolved the issues and sold tilting trains back to Britain years later. Number 8. British Rail GT3 gas turbine locomotive. Another British gas turbine experiment from the 1960s was the British Rail GT3 gas turbine 3. Built by English Electric in 1961, this prototype mainline locomotive was designed to investigate the application of gas turbines in rail traction. Unusually for a gas turbine locomotive, it externally resembled a steam tender locomotive, with the tender carrying kerosene fuel for its EM27L gas turbine engine. The designer, J.O.P. Hughes, intentionally used a traditional chassis and mechanical transmission to avoid complexities associated with less proven technologies of the time, such as bogies and electrical transmission. The GT3 had a power output of 2,150 HP and a maximum speed of 90 mph, 140 km/h. While a functional prototype, it was ultimately not competitive against conventional diesel and electric traction of the era. The project was discontinued and the GT3 was scrapped in February 1966, marking the end of English Electric's primary gas turbine locomotive efforts. Number 9. Linear Induction Motor Research Vehicle, LIMRV. The concept of linear induction motors (LIMs) for propulsion gained significant interest in the 1960s, notably through the work of British electrical engineer Eric Laithwaite. This research led to a U.S. Department of Transportation program and the creation of the Linear Induction Motor Research Vehicle, LIMRV. Built by Garrett Corporation, this experimental vehicle was specifically designed to test the capabilities of LIMs for high-speed ground transportation. While test runs extended into the early 1970s, its foundational development and the drive for such technology were firmly rooted in the 1960s. The LMRV was a 56-foot, 27-ton aluminum-clad test vehicle that ran on standard railroad tracks. On August 14, 1974, the Garrett LMRV prototype set a world speed record for wheeled-on-rail vehicles at 255.7 mph, 411.3 km/h, at the Pueblo Test Track in Colorado. Despite its impressive performance and proof of concept for LM propulsion, the focus shifted towards maglev systems that entirely eliminated wheel-on-rail contact, and the LIMRV's specific application was not pursued for commercial passenger trains. Number 10. Nuclear-powered train concepts, USA and USSR. The 1950s and early 1960s saw various ambitious proposals for nuclear-powered trains, particularly in the United States and the Soviet Union, driven by the era's fascination with atomic energy. Dr. Lyle Borst of the University of Utah proposed a 360-ton X-12 locomotive carrying a uranium-235 nuclear reactor. The idea was to heat a fluid to boiling with the reactor, pass it through electric turbine engines to produce power for traction motors, and then recirculate the fluid. This promised immense range without refueling, potentially traveling 5,000 to 8,000 kilometers. The Soviet Union also had plans for a massive nuclear-powered cotton trekking train. While designs were drawn up and even patents filed, and the technical feasibility of small reactors was demonstrated in submarines, these concepts never went beyond the drawing board or very early conceptual stages for actual working prototypes on rails. The sheer logistical challenges, immense weight, safety concerns about transporting a mobile nuclear reactor, the prohibitive costs, and significant public apprehension regarding radiation ultimately banned these designs from ever becoming a reality. The idea of a moving bomb on rails was simply too dangerous and impractical to implement. These incredible machines remind us that progress often takes unexpected turns, with many brilliant ideas being shelved for reasons beyond their ability to simply work. If you found this journey through forgotten rail history fascinating, hit that like button, share this video with fellow history buffs, and subscribe for more stories of innovation and ambition from the past. What other forgotten technologies would you like us to rediscover? Let us know in the